Hello folks, it's been a while since I made one of these videos and I thought it was time to make another because I'm starting to see some familiar questions come up in the comments to some videos. And that's, why would you possibly want to lease a car when you could pay cash for it or do a PCP, as most people do? Still, the vast majority of people getting a new car in the UK, if they're not getting it through Motability or through salary sacrifice scheme or anything like that, they are doing a PCP. They're going to a car dealership. They'll almost always be sort of pushed towards a PCP by said dealership. So I'm just going to run the numbers for you. We'll look at paying for the car with cash. We'll look at doing a PCP on it, and we'll look at PCH, which is a personal contract hire. It's what we call car leasing on this channel. So you've got a price for this one here. It's the 𝙇𝙄𝙉𝙆𝙎. The reason I've chosen this is last month's the fourth biggest selling car in the UK, which seems incredible for such a new brand. And leasing.com recently had their awards and they gave it their car of the year. So it seemed like a good one to do. Another reason it seemed like a good one to do is their PCP at the moment is 0% finance. So a lot of people will think that means it's amazing, because on this lease deal, I can assure you, you'll be paying some sort of interest on it. You can see the lease here, it's got a £354 admin fee on this one, which is quite steep. But the initial rental on it is £1,113, and then it's £371 a month. It's on 10,000 miles a year on a 3-year deal. Now, if we look at the PCP, this is on JQ's website. You can see it's 0% interest. £35,165 is the purchase price of the car. You've got cash price, you've got a deposit, you've got total amount of credit, 35 monthly payments, 10,000 miles a year, £504 a month with £1,467 up front. I've made that upfront payment the same as the lease so that we're looking at kind of an even playing field, if you like. And then there's an optional final payment on the car of £16,530. So that's at the end of the 3 years. If you decide you want to keep the car, you've got to give them 16.5 grand to hold on to it. Okay, so we've brought up the magic spreadsheet. You know how I like a spreadsheet. I have to say, folks, this is not financial advice and you shouldn't take it as financial advice. This should be a good reason for you to actually run the numbers for yourself before you just walk into a car dealership and sign up for a PCP. Or you save up a load of cash and then dump that on a car because it's what you've always done. All I'm really suggesting you do is make sure you fully understand the numbers, because I think a lot of people don't. Particularly, people are blinded by 0% finance deals. And all I'm looking to do with this video is to open your eyes, and hopefully you'll come away from this and you'll run some similar calculations before you get yourself a new vehicle. By the way, I'm saying a new vehicle. You could do this with used vehicles as well, and it's something that I would actively encourage you do. Obviously, if you're looking at used vehicles, you need to factor in maintenance a little bit more. You need to possibly factor in a warranty, and you need to possibly factor in the cost of repairs. Things that I've left out of this entirely, okay, because we're looking at a brand new car that's going to be under full warranty, etc. So initial payment, if you're paying cash, you're paying the whole lot up front, £35,165. Tax, you're going to pay £10 in year 1 on this plug-in hybrid, and then £190 a year in year 2 and year 3. So that means after 3 years you've paid 35.5 grand. That 0% PCP, you've paid £1,467 up front, £504 a month for 35 months. You've also paid your £390 tax. So that 0% PCP has cost you £19,495 after 3 years. On the lease, which is not 0%, you are going to have interest factored in on that. £1,467 up front, £371 a month for 35 months. Your tax is included within that monthly payment, so you don't need to worry about that. And you're looking at £14,452. So at this stage, you're 5 grand better off leasing the car on a PCH than you are doing a PCP on it. 5 grand. As for the cash, the residual value is going to make a bit of a difference here. Don't forget, on the PCP, you've got an optional final payment. So that's an amount you can pay to keep the car at the end of your 3-year period. That's an important thing to remember, especially when we looked at the predicted residual value, which I've got at 48%. That's 16,800 quid is what's predicted that this car will be worth after 3 years with 10,000 miles a year on it. So 30,000 mile a year car. I've looked at various places for this predicted residual value, and I've taken what appears to be one of the highest ones out there. One of the places I've looked is on ChatGPT. Business car estimates that the car is going to be worth 37%, which is 13 grand. I think it will hold its value better than that. That would give you a depreciation loss of 22,000 quid. And then saying what it would look like at 40, 45, 50, 48 and a half, they're saying here, it'd be worth 17 grand. Given the risk factors around the car, they're saying it's a new brand, how acceptable it might be to the market in 3 years. A residual of 35 to 45% is plausible for the SHS version in 3 years. So a reasonable estimate is 12 to 16,000 pounds, the car's value, after 3 years and 30,000 miles. If I pick a most likely midpoint, perhaps 14 grand. I've run all the same info into Google Gemini, and that's given us all its rationale here. And they're saying 48% retention is predicted. General industry prediction for JQ7 after 3 years comparable to a Nissan Qashqai, and that seems much more realistic to me. 48% residual value for a new car after 3 years is actually not too bad. That would make it £16,800. So I've gone with that higher number, 16,800 quid. Obviously, the car could depreciate at a steeper rate than this, or it might actually hold its value a lot better. It's already showing some good sales figures, as I said at the start of the video. So it might prove to be a really popular car that holds its value a little bit better. So we'll talk about how that might affect things in a sec. So depreciation estimates 18,365 quid. And then your total cost of ownership for the first 3 years of the car's life, £18,755 for the cash, 19.5 grand on PCP, 14.5 grand on the lease. So really, on that 0% PCP, your final payment is really the predicted value of the car in 3 years' time. So you're not going to be gaining anything from that, maybe 270 quid if that's the case. So the argument that, well, with a PCP, you've got something to go towards your next deposit, blah, blah, blah. You know, sometimes that works out, particularly during a perfect storm of a global pandemic and semiconductor shortages and part shortages, etc. But aside from things like that, often a lot of smoke and mirrors are deployed to just simply to get you to sign up to another car. And you'll see cases where people are paying car finance years later for a car they had years before, simply because it keeps getting rolled into the next deal and the next deal. But let's say the predicted residual value is wrong, and actually the car's going to be worth 20 grand in 3 years, not 16,800. At that point, your optional final payment's all right. I've got 3.5 grand left in the car at the moment. But hold on, you're still saving 5 grand just by leasing it in the first place. By leasing that car, I've saved 5,000 quid over the PCP. If all the stars and planets aligned and this thing was actually worth 20 grand after 3 years, you know, you've got 3,200 of it, but I'm still 1,800 quid better off over here. And as for the cash purchase, that's maybe a great idea if you want to keep the car for the next 15, 20 years, potentially. However, with cash, you have to also consider the opportunity cost. An opportunity cost is the amount of money you could have earned having 35 grand in the bank. And let's say you had that 35 grand invested wisely, perhaps 4% return after tax. It's not out of the question, is it, at all? That would have earned you, what, 1,400 quid, 1,500 quid, somewhere in that order, in that 3 year period. Now, there's still opportunity costs with lease and PCP because you've still got to pay 1,500 quid up front. And then every month, your theoretical pot of 35 grand is dropping by either 500 quid or 370 quid. So there is still opportunity cost because that money's leaving your bank account and go into a finance company, but it's not as harsh as dropping 35 grand on day one. You know, even at the end point of your lease or your PCP, you've still got 15 grand or 20 grand in the bank more than the person that's paid cash. So you're still generating interest on that 15 grand you've got left, or 20 grand that you've got left, which the person with cash isn't doing. So you have to bear that in mind. Now, obviously, we're looking at this on a new car, and there'll be lots of people saying, well, just buy it at 2 years old or 3 years old. That's fine. You can absolutely go and do that. And yes, folks, 2-year-old cars can be a bargain, but you have to factor in higher running costs. You have to factor in that if you're financing a 2-year-old car, you might get some serious interest on those. Don't forget, this PCP is interest free. And of course, you're more likely to step into the unknown. Now, the 𝙇𝙄𝙉𝙆's actually got a half decent warranty, but a lot of cars still have a 3-year warranty. And once you're outside of warranty, they can be very, very expensive to put right nowadays. And there are quite a few cars out there, particularly those with wet belts, etc., that age a little bit like milk. So bear all these things in mind. As I said earlier, this is not about financial advice. This is just about getting people to think outside the box. I grew up with parents that taught me the rule of don't get yourself into debt of any kind, save up for something and then buy it when you can afford it. And, you know, I think that served me well at times in life. But I look at these numbers here and think to myself, if I could afford to buy this car, I'd go and lease it. That's just me. I'm not telling you to go and do that. Run the numbers for yourself before you step into a PCP, or before you go and empty your bank account out and years of savings to go and put into something that's going to depreciate by 52% in 3 years. Just give it some thought, folks. Of course, leasing.com are a sponsor on my channel. Link is in the video description. There's a QR code popping up on the screen if you want to get a quote for any lease on any car. If you use that, it does help to support the channel, so appreciate that. And if you're getting a new or used car using cash or a PCP or a lease or HP or a loan or anything else, I strongly suggest you go and have a look at another channel sponsor of mine, ALA Insurance, and think about some gap insurance. The code GYM10 saves you 10% on any of their products, and it should help to make sure you're not left out of pocket if the worst happens and your car gets written off. Thanks ever so much for watching this one, folks. I hope some of you found it helpful. See you on the next one. Huge thanks to all my channel members for your continued support. I really do appreciate it.